Hello everyone, and welcome to my Young and the Restless Official 24 channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Claire Newman had always believed she'd conquered the darkest parts of herself, the twisted impulses, the buried rage, the jealousy that once ruled her life like a puppeteer pulling invisible strings, but the truth was that she had only ever sedated the monster, never killed it, never truly dismantled the fractured psychology that made her capable of the unthinkable, and on the night everything came crashing down, that monster awoke with a violence so startling, so catastrophic, that even Claire didn't recognize the version of herself staring back in the mirror afterward. It began quietly, subtly, with a subtle shift in Holden Novak's behavior, a secretive hesitation in his voice, the way he lowered it whenever AUDRA'S appeared, the flicker of panic in his eyes whenever Claire asked where he had been or why he didn't respond to her messages during the hours she knew he was free. At first, Claire tried to rationalize it, tried to convince herself that trauma made her hypervigilant, insecure, paranoid, but the truth seeped through every crack she tried to seal. Holden was hiding something he never meant for her to know. And the more she sensed it, the more she spiraled into a frantic psychological freefall, her mind spinning with terrifying possibilities. She told herself it couldn't be another woman, Holden wasn't that reckless, but the seed had been planted, the vine had begun to grow, and jealousy, once awakened inside Claire, was ravenous. It didn't take long for Claire to follow the crumbs that Holden didn't even realize he'd left behind. A half-erased calendar entry. A phone call he claimed was from a work associate. A slip of the tongue when he mentioned a meeting in a part of town Claire knew neither of them had any reason to visit. Claire's mind, trained by trauma, sharpened with the precision of a hunter. She followed him one night, her pulse suffocating her as she watched him walk into a dimly lit townhouse. She expected another woman, some secret lover, some fling, but what she saw instead carved a deep, primal wound inside her. Holden wasn't meeting a mistress. He was meeting AUDRA'S. The woman Claire already despised. The woman Claire never trusted. The woman Claire had warned Holden about again and again. But what shattered Claire wasn't that they were meeting in secret. What shattered her was the documents she saw through a partially open door, birth certificates, financial papers, sealed envelopes with Holden's original surname, AUDRA'S handwriting in the margins, and most damningly, a DNA report with both their names printed at the top. Claire's hands trembled so violently she nearly dropped her phone. Holden and AUDRA shared something she could never compete with, blood. A family bond. A secret lineage. A connection stronger, older, and deeper than anything Claire could ever hope to build with Holden. The jealousy that ripped through Claire at that moment wasn't ordinary. It wasn't the insecure, anxious jealousy of someone afraid of losing love. It was the jealous fury of someone who refused to lose control, someone who had clawed her way out of darkness only to realize she might be shoved back in. She felt betrayed, lied to, manipulated, the same emotions that once fueled her downfall. And just like before, her reaction wasn't rational. It was instinctive, primal, explosive. She stormed into the townhouse without thinking. Holden froze, startled, guilty. AUDRA'S eyes widened, flickering with triumph first, then calculation, then genuine fear as Claire approached. Claire demanded answers, but every word out of Holden's mouth felt like another betrayal. He wasn't having an affair, no, but he had kept a truth from her. He had discovered months earlier that AUDRA was actually his half-sister through their long-lost biological father, a man who had abandoned Holden's mother and later secretly had a child with AUDRA'S mother. They weren't lovers. They weren't cheating. But the secrecy, the lies, the hidden meetings behind Claire's back, it was too much for her to absorb. She tried to breathe, but her mind had already fractured. AUDRA made the fatal mistake of smirking, of letting the superiority drip from her voice as she told Claire she had no place in this family dynamic, that Holden was trying to protect her from things she couldn't handle. Those words were gasoline on the flames that were already consuming Claire from the inside. Claire felt something change inside her, a crack, a snap, a release. The monster she had kept chained for so long surged forward, drowning out reason, conscience, and restraint. She lunged toward Audra with a fury no one saw coming, not even Claire herself. Holden tried to intervene, but Claire shoved him so hard he stumbled back into the wall. Audra, panicked but still arrogant, tried to retreat, but Claire was faster. She grabbed Audra by the wrist, nails digging in, and dragged her back into the room. Audra screamed for Holden to stop her, but he was too late, too stunned by the transformation happening right in front of him. Claire shoved Audra into a table, splintering the wood, sending paper scattering like broken promises. But the fatal shift didn't happen in the struggle. It happened the moment Audra screamed, "You've always been weak, Claire. That's why everyone lies to you. That's why everyone leaves you." Those words detonated something inside Claire, something violent and irreparable. Claire snapped. She grabbed the heavy metal letter opener from the edge of the table without thinking, without planning, without even registering the full weight of what she was about to do. All she knew was that she needed Audra to stop talking, stop judging, stop sneering at her, stop existing in the space where Claire's security once lived. Audra saw the weapon and tried to back away, but Claire was already locked in a trance of pure instinct, pure rage. Holden shouted her name, pleaded with her, but Claire didn't hear him, or maybe she did, and simply didn't care. She swung the letter opener with a force born of fear, trauma, and jealousy. Audra's scream was cut short as Claire struck her, once, twice, then again, each blow blurring into the next until the only sound in the room was Claire's ragged breathing. When it was over, Audra collapsed onto the floor, the life fading from her eyes, the shock frozen on her face as if she couldn't believe Claire had truly done it. Holden stood frozen, horrified, unable to move, unable to speak. Claire stared down at her hands, at the blood smeared across her palms, dripping from her fingertips, staining her wrists like a mark she would never be able to scrub away. For a moment, she didn't speak. She didn't scream. She didn't cry. She simply stared, detached, hollow, eerily calm, as if the monster inside her had retreated again, satisfied with the destruction it had caused. Holden finally managed to whisper, "What have you done?" His voice shook, cracked. Disintegrated. But Claire didn't answer. Instead, she turned slowly toward Holden, her expression unreadable, almost serene. She stepped toward him, and Holden instinctively backed away, fear flickering in his eyes, not of what she had done, but of who she had become. Claire lifted her blood-stained hands and whispered, almost dreamlike, "She wanted to take you from me. I couldn't let her. I won't let anyone take you from me ever again." Holden's face crumbled. He told her they had to call the police, that this wasn't something they could hide, that Audra's death would destroy everything. But Claire had already crossed a line she didn't know how to retreat from. She shook her head, her voice suddenly sharp, commanding, cold. "No. No one can know. They'll take you away. They'll destroy us. I did this for us." Holden, shaking, insisted that she wasn't thinking clearly. But Claire was thinking more clearly than she had in years, or so she believed. Every trauma, every betrayal, every moment she felt powerless had led to this. She had reclaimed control in the only way her fractured psychology understood. But what Claire didn't realize was that Audra, moments before her death, had uncovered Claire's deepest, most dangerous secret, a secret so damning it could unravel everything. While Claire had been unraveling Holden's lies, Audra had been digging through Claire's past, piecing together fragments Claire thought she had buried forever. Audra had discovered that Claire was connected to a series of accidental deaths in her younger years, people who had gotten too close to the truth, people who had threatened to expose Claire's instability. Audra had uncovered evidence Claire didn't even know still existed, evidence tying her to crimes the world believed were mere tragedies. And Audra, with her final breath, choking on blood and disbelief, tried to reveal it. "You've done this before. Claire, they're going to find out." Those words echoed like a nightmare across the room. Claire froze. Holden's eyes widened in a new kind of horror, one that wasn't about Audra anymore, but about Claire. Because suddenly, Holden realized Audra's death might not be Claire's first. Claire's chest tightened. Her vision blurred. Her breathing became erratic. the monster inside her wasn't satisfied. It wasn't finished. It wanted to protect her secrets, at any cost. She crouched beside Audra's body, staring at her now silent face as if waiting for her to speak again, waiting for the accusation to return and finish what it had started. Holden begged her to step away, but Claire didn't hear him. She placed a trembling hand on Audra's cheek and whispered, "You shouldn't have looked. You shouldn't have dug. You shouldn't have known." Her voice was soft. Too soft. Terrifyingly soft. Holden realized then that the woman he loved was gone, or maybe she had never truly been the woman he believed she was. Maybe she had always been this, fragile, fractured, capable of violence he didn't want to see. Claire stood up slowly, turning to Holden with wide, tear-filled eyes. "You still love me," she whispered. "Say you still love me." Holden didn't answer. And in that silence, the monster inside Claire smiled. Because now, Audra was dead. The secret was buried with her. And Holden, trembling, speechless, devastated, was trapped in a nightmare he never saw coming, bound to a woman who would destroy anyone who stood between them. Even if the next person she had to destroy was him. Claire Newman had always believed she'd conquered the darkest parts of herself, the twisted impulses, the buried rage, the jealousy that once ruled her life like a puppeteer pulling invisible strings, but the truth was that she had only ever sedated the monster, never killed it, never truly dismantled the fractured psychology that made her capable of the unthinkable, and on the night everything came crashing down, that monster awoke with a violence so startling, so catastrophic, that even Claire didn't recognize the version of herself staring back in the mirror afterward. It began quietly, subtly, with a shift so microscopic she nearly gaslit herself into believing she imagined it, the slight hesitation in Holden Novak's voice whenever he spoke to her, the way his eyes darted away when she asked simple questions, the faint tremor in his hand when he put his phone face down the second Audra Charles's name flashed across the screen. At first, Claire chalked it up to survivor's paranoia, a reflex she'd spent years trying to silence, a reflex born from a life where lies were landmines and secrets were the knives people hid behind their backs. She forced herself to breathe through it, to soothe herself with rationality, to repeat the therapy-scripted mantra that not every change, not every silence, not every flicker of discomfort meant a betrayal. But the truth, the real truth, seeped through the cracks anyway, like a toxin slowly poisoning her stability. Holden was hiding something. And whatever it was, he never intended for her to know. But Claire had lived too long in darkness not to recognize its scent. She felt it stalking her days, slipping into her nights, whispering warnings she tried to ignore but couldn't. She told herself it couldn't be another woman, Holden wasn't the type, Holden wasn't reckless like that, but jealousy doesn't care about reason, and once the seed had been planted, it sprouted thorned vines that wrapped tight around Claire's mind, squeezing harder every time she saw Holden's expression tighten at the mention of Audra's name. She knew something was happening. She just didn't know what. And once Claire decided to find out, she moved with terrifying precision. The clues came like crumbs scattered carelessly by someone who didn't think he'd ever be followed. A half-erased calendar entry labeled only with an initial. A phone call Holden claimed was from a work associate even though his voice dropped an octave the moment he answered. A slip of the tongue when he referenced a location in a part of town where neither of them had business, a part of town Claire recognized as one Audra had frequented during her more conniving days. Claire's chest tightened with each new suspicion, each new inconsistency. And eventually, the pressure became unbearable. She followed him. It was supposed to calm her anxieties. It was supposed to prove her wrong. Instead, it shattered her. Her heartbeat thundered in her ears as she watched Holden step out of his car after dusk and approach a dimly lit townhouse, a unit Claire recognized as belonging to one of Audra's acquaintances. She expected the worst. A secret affair. A betrayal so cliché it would almost be easier to process. But what she saw inside wasn't easier. It was worse. Through the gap of a partially open door, Claire saw Holden and Audra standing side by side over a cluttered table. But it wasn't intimacy that connected them. It wasn't romance. It wasn't lust. It was blood. Birth certificates. Financial documents. A sealed envelope with Holden's original surname. Scrawled notes in Audra's handwriting. And then, the paper that sucked all the oxygen from Claire's lungs, a DNA report with their names printed at the top. Holden Novak. Audra Charles. Biological half-siblings. Claire's hands trembled violently, the phone nearly slipping from her grip as she tried to process what her eyes refused to deny. Holden hadn't cheated. He hadn't betrayed her romantically. No, he had simply withheld the one kind of truth Claire feared most, the kind that made her irrelevant. Replaceable. Outsider. She stared at the documents, her mind splintering with the realization that Holden and Audra shared something she could never compete with, a bond forged long before Claire existed. A secret that belonged to them alone. A lineage that excluded her. The monster inside her roared awake. Her breath came fast and sharp, her pulse shaking her to her core as jealousy, bitter, acidic, primal, burned through her veins like wildfire. Holden had lied. Audra had sneered behind her back. And together, they had built a secret world without her. She didn't knock. She didn't think. She crashed through the door like a storm. Holden spun around, shocked, pale. Audra's expression flickered from annoyance to panic to smug satisfaction in a matter of seconds. Claire demanded answers, her voice a violent tremor, but every word out of Holden's mouth felt like another stab. He tried to explain, tried to soften the blow, but the more he spoke, the more Claire spiraled. Holden claimed he was trying to protect her from the chaos, from Audra's manipulation, from the emotional weight of his new parentage, but Claire heard only one thing: he had chosen Audra over her. Then Audra smirked. That one expression, dripping with superiority, with cruel amusement, lit the fuse that would obliterate the night. Audra stepped closer, lowering her voice as if delivering a verdict Claire was too fragile to hear. You were never meant to be part of this, Audra said. Holden knows you can't handle real truths. That's why he kept you in the dark. That's why everyone does. Those words, that condescending, poisonous declaration, cracked Claire wide open. Before Holden could react, Claire lunged. Her fury was volcanic, instinctive, uncontrollable. She shoved Holden out of the way so forcefully he crashed into the wall, gasping. Papers scattered like shards of broken trust as she grabbed Audra by the wrist and yanked her back into the room. Audra screamed for Holden, but Claire was past hearing. She was past everything. Her vision tunneled. Her pulse roared. The monster inside her, the one she thought she'd chained, surged up and consumed her whole. The struggle was chaotic, violent, frenzied. Claire slammed Audra onto a table, splintering it beneath their weight. Holden shouted her name, begged her to stop, but Claire couldn't stop. Audra spat venom in her face, calling her weak, broken, pathetic. And then, in a final, fatal burst of arrogance, Audra hissed the words that detonated the last shred of Claire's control. That's why everyone leaves you. Something snapped. Claire's hand closed around the metal letter opener lying on the shattered table. She didn't think. She didn't hesitate. She struck. Audra's scream died in her throat as Claire's rage descended with brutal finality. Holden froze, his breath strangled in horror as he watched Claire, the woman he loved, transform into a figure drenched in blood and fury. When it was over, Audra collapsed in a heap, her eyes glassy, her body limp. Silence swallowed the room. Claire stared at her blood-soaked hands, eerily calm, eerily detached, as if the monster had retreated again and left her hollow in its wake. Holden whispered, "What have you done?" but Claire barely registered it. She turned to him slowly, stepping through the pooling blood, her expression hauntingly serene. "She wanted to take you from me," she whispered. "I couldn't let her." Holden's voice broke as he told her they had to call the police, that this was irreversible, catastrophic, criminal. But Claire shook her head with chilling resolve. "No. I did this for us." But then, the final twist of the night, Audra, choking on the last flickers of breath she had left, whispered something that froze Claire in place and drained the color from Holden's face. "You've done this before." Holden's eyes snapped to Claire. Confusion. Horror. Realization. Because suddenly, he wasn't just looking at a woman who had killed in a moment of rage. He was looking at a woman who might have killed before. Audra's body went still, the truth dying with her, but the words hung between Claire and Holden like a curse. Claire's breathing turned erratic. Holden stepped back as she crouched beside Audra, touching her cheek with trembling fingers, whispering, "You shouldn't have dug. You shouldn't have known." Holden realized, in icy terror, that Claire wasn't collapsing. She wasn't panicking. The monster wasn't done. When Claire turned to him, tears streaming, she whispered, "You still love me. Say it." Holden couldn't. And in that silence, Claire's smile, small, broken, chilling, revealed the truth Holden had been too blinded to see. Holden's silence stretched across the room like a blade pressed to Claire's throat, but instead of wounding her, it sharpened her resolve. She stared at him with eyes that flickered between desperation and something far colder, something carved from the same fractured psychology she had spent years burying under the illusion of healing. Holden's breath came fast, shallow, terrified as Claire stepped toward him, her bloody handprints staining the floor with every trembling movement. He had seen her shaken before, angry before, even unhinged before, but nothing, compared to the eerie calm radiating off her now. It was the calm of someone who had passed the point of no return. The calm of someone who had finally embraced the monster inside her and no longer feared what came next. "Claire," Holden whispered, voice cracking as he pressed his back against the far wall, palms raised in a futile attempt at reason. "You need to listen to me. This isn't you. You're in shock. You're traumatized." His voice faltered. "We can still fix this." At that, something inside Claire snapped, not violently, but with a delicate, chilling precision, like the soft click of a lock turning. Her expression softened, almost pitifully, as she tilted her head and watched him with unsettling tenderness. "Fix this," she repeated, her voice airy, distant, childlike. "Holden, there's no fixing what she did." Her eyes darted toward Audra's body, then back to him.